Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever stopped and wondered if the very pillars of our society, the institutions we rely on every single day, might actually be fronts for an ancient, secret network? Like a system where a tiny, ultra-powerful elite operates at the very top, while all the regular employees and members are just completely oblivious?
It really brings us to this deeply provocative question. What if the world's most respected institutions are actually hiding a dark, occult reality right in plain sight? Today, we're diving into a collection of whistleblower texts that map out these massive, sweeping conspiracy claims. Now, to be clear, our goal here isn't to take a side or tell you what to believe. We're just going to impartially unpack exactly what these sources are alleging about the hidden power structures supposedly governing our world. Okay, to really understand these claims, we first need to define what the texts repeatedly refer to as the system, or the Illuminati. According to the sources, this is a worldwide occult organization operating in absolute total secrecy. Their main playbook? A global infiltration strategy meant to facilitate a secret takeover from the inside out. They reportedly pull this off by using highly respectable front organizations, think churches, banks, charities, to completely mask a Luciferian agenda. It's literally the definition of hiding in plain sight.
Let's dive right into this. Here is how we're breaking it all down. 1. The cover life versus the occult life. 2. Infiltrating religious institutions. 3. Government and intelligence control. 4. Finance, media, and education. 5. Global policy front organizations. And finally, number 6, the ultimate goal. Part 1. The cover life versus the occult life. So, to figure out how a spiderweb this massive could supposedly exist completely undiscovered, we have to look at their foundational strategy of deception. Take a look at this quote from Adam Weishaupt, who actually founded the Illuminati back in 1776. He said, "The great strength of our order lies in its concealment, always concealed by another name and another occupation." So, this whole concept of hiding within legitimate society, it's anchored right there in their own historical texts. The really crucial point here is this bizarre dual existence. The sources describe what they call a daytime or cover life. This is the stuff the public sees: philanthropy, civic governance, or, deep religious piety. But according to the whistleblowers, this is all just a carefully crafted mask. It hides a horrifying nighttime or occult life that allegedly involves Luciferian rituals, human trafficking, and vast underground facilities. It's essentially a massive two-faced reality.
Moving on to part 2, infiltrating religious institutions. According to the texts, religious organizations are actually primary targets for subversion. The sources identify some very specific groups: the Catholic Church and the Vatican, Freemasonry, the LDS Church, and even super-insulated groups like the Amish and Mennonites. Looking specifically at the Catholic Church, the texts describe a completely duplicitous infrastructure. The whistleblowers neutrally report that the Vatican's financial arm, the Holy See, is allegedly run by Satanic councilmen. Even wilder, they claim that catacombs and tunnel systems beneath certain Catholic churches are actively used for dark rituals and disposing of remains, keeping it all totally hidden from the public eye. Then, when it comes to Freemasonry, the sources use the words of a prominent Mason himself, Albert Pike, to explain the deception. He wrote, "The initiate is intentionally misled by false interpretation. Their true explanation is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry." The claim being made here is that lower-level Blue Lodge Masons are kept entirely in the dark. Meanwhile, those at the 33rd degree and above are said to practice a secret Luciferian religion that, according to the sources, requires acts of human sacrifice to even attain. The sheer scale of these allegations across different faiths is just astonishing. The sources assert that LDS, or Mormon leadership, is tied to the Merovingian bloodline, and that temples in places like Salt Lake City and Portland are actually built right over mind control programming facilities for large-scale genetic and breeding programs. And get this, they even claim that highly insulated Amish and Mennonite communities have been infiltrated by Jesuits and former Nazi scientists. The alleged reason? To hide elite offspring and insert programmed assassins. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Part 3. Government and intelligence control. The whistleblowers assert that the world's most powerful intelligence agencies are directly controlled by Illuminati families. For instance, the CIA is allegedly run by top bloodlines and creates front companies to obscure their global operations. And the FBI? They're accused of running cover-ups for the elite, participating in child abductions and withholding evidence,
with sources even pointing to the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop as a prime example. The texts describe a deeply compromised two-tier justice system where blackmailed judges, prosecutors, and police officers protect perpetrators and silence survivors.
So how on earth do they manipulate the masses into just going along with this? The texts point to something called the Hegelian dialectic strategy. It's basically a three-step psychological trap. Step 1 is the thesis. The elite intentionally create a threat or crisis. Step 2, the antithesis. They step up and introduce themselves as the protectors from that very crisis. And finally, step 3, the synthesis. The terrified public willingly hands over their control, their rights, and their money to pay for that protection.
Part 4. Finance, Media, and Education. The sources claim the entire global banking sector is just an exclusive club for the elite. They cite the secret creation of the Federal Reserve on Jekyll Island by agents of the Rothschilds and Rockefellers as a tool to control the money supply and engineer economic crashes. Throw in the World Bank and the IMF, and it's described as a massive mechanism for debt-based enslavement. And it doesn't stop there. Elite universities like Harvard, Princeton, and Stanford are labeled as narrative centers designed to produce system-approved information while totally squashing any dissent.
Beyond higher education, the texts characterize mass media as a top-down dissemination tool used for strict narrative control. Major news networks are allegedly outright owned by elite families. And it gets even stranger. The sources claim that everyday mainstream publications, like Vogue magazine for example, are used to transmit coded symbols, arm gestures, and secret meeting locations to hierarchy members, literally sitting right there in plain sight on your local grocery store shelf. And these startling allegations even extend into wholesome family entertainment and mental health care. The sources claim that Walt Disney Studios and its iconic theme parks, as well as institutions like the ISSTD, which is an international society for trauma therapists, are actually massive deceptions. According to the texts, while they appear totally wholesome, they're being used for trauma-based mind control, underground programming, and wide-scale money laundering. Now, what's really fascinating is how these ideas actually penetrate real, formal academic study. Take, for example, a Leiden University thesis that analyzes the diachronic change in language and theories regarding the Illuminati, tracing it all the way back to Adam Weishaupt. It brilliantly illustrates that public fascination with these secret hierarchies isn't just random internet lore. It's a deeply rooted cultural phenomenon that gets studied at the highest academic levels.
Part 5. Global Policy Front Organizations.
At the absolute top of this institutional pyramid, the sources list high-profile global policy groups that they say act as breakout groups, managed directly by the Satanic Council. They point to the Bilderberg Group, which reportedly meets in total secrecy to coordinate global scripts and secret space programs. They also highlight the World Economic Forum, claiming it pushes the Great Reset and that famous slogan, "You'll own nothing and be happy." The texts allege the WEF's Young Global Leaders program, featuring prominent figures like Mark Zuckerberg and Dan Crenshaw, is a key part of a plan to turn humanity into a global slave class. According to the texts, these front groups, including the Council on Foreign Relations, serve a vital strategic purpose. They provide plausible deniability for the system's actions, basically acting as a giant buffer between the core Illuminati leadership and public scrutiny. And the sources claim they ensure absolute loyalty by brutally punishing any internal whistleblowers with complete financial, legal, and social ruin.
Finally, Part 6. The ultimate goal.
So, what is the purported endgame of this massive, centuries-old infiltration? Well, the sources state it's the creation of a Supreme World Council. The texts characterize the United Nations as the direct forerunner to this council, with subgroups like UNICEF and UNESCO allegedly being used for massive data collection, trafficking, and pushing global educational agendas. The ultimate, final objective: to completely abolish individual national sovereignty, wipe out national pride, and establish a total one-world government. Which leaves us with a pretty haunting reflection. If the greatest deception truly is hiding in plain sight, right inside the organizations we rely on, how much of the reality you trust every day is just a carefully constructed cover story? Again, we aren't here to endorse these whistleblower claims, but mapping them out like this certainly asks us to reflect on the fragility of institutional trust. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, never stop questioning the world around you.